Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here from ZooBox, and today for our daily movie review, we're going to be talking about a film from 2013. We're going to be talking about Willow Creek. It's a found footage horror mystery sci-fi film. It's written and directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. It stars Alexi Gilmore and Bryce Johnson. It doesn't have a great plot summary here, so we're just going to look at what they have. There's not a great synopsis. One's really long and kind of drifts off with ellipses at the end, and one kind of misrepresents the movie, but we'll correct it, I suppose. Jim and Kelly, a couple with desires for adventure, decide to visit the site of the place where the infamous encounter with Bigfoot happened and was filmed, the Bluff Creek, with hopes of being able to capture real evidence of the creature, evidence that goes beyond their bravery when they start to realize what truth lies behind the woods. So, like I said, fake documentary, found footage kind of movie. It does not have kind of a motivated source. A lot of times you'll watch these movies and they kind of divine a reason why you're watching this footage. They found it, somebody put it together, etc., etc. I don't think this movie even really gets into that at all. It's a very simple film. They shot it in like 5 days. And it was an idea that Bobcat Goldthwait had, who's usually known for his comedic acting stuff. He was kind of a thing in the 90s, if you've seen, or in the 80s. Like he was in the Police Academy series. He was in Scrooge, comes to mind. He's the kind of guy that gets fucked over and he goes crazy at the end. He comes to the office with the shotgun, tries to kill Bill Murray, if you've ever seen that movie. But he's become a director, and he's actually a Bigfoot enthusiast. I think he's a true believer, if I'm not mistaken, or at least he was when he made this movie. It's just something that he's been interested. He's just interested in the subculture. And I think a lot of people probably would not like this movie. I know when I first saw it back when it came out, I was pretty meh on the film, honestly, because it feels very aimless. It's one of these movies where not a lot happens. You can't go into it thinking you're going to watch like the most terrifying film I've ever seen. There is a sequence, and we're going to talk about it, that is incredibly effective. And if there's a reason to watch the movie, it is for that sequence. But it is front loaded with kind of just almost like lackadaisical, light-hearted exploration of Bigfoot culture and the kinds of people that are into the Bigfoot legend and the kind of people that live in these towns and these communities where there are Bigfoot sightings and how they all have a story. And it's become kind of a mini industry for these people. It's because they become tourist attractions, and it's how a lot of the town survive. So they are, they're apt to try to keep this thing alive, this legend alive, the story alive. And there's a lot of speculation about whether or not it's really true, right? So they go to Willow Creek to try to do their own like little mini investigation. For some reason, the character he's into conspiracy theories kind of, or, not in a serious way, but in a way I think that most people are, where they just think, oh, this is a fun thing to look into. It's a fun thing to explore. I remember, years ago, probably around the time this came out, a little bit before this, a few years before this came out, there was tons of documentaries all about like Bigfoot hunting. I don't know, it was like a zeitgeist thing for a while, and this kind of comes out, I would say, right at the end of that era. My brothers and I, we used to, there's one, I can't even remember what it's called, but it was like this old man and his friends, and they were Bigfoot hunters, and they have like the Bigfoot call, mama, mama. We used to do that shit all the time. Try to find each other in a store. Mama. Mama. Yeah. Anyways, but so this is kind of it feels almost like a period on it, right? It's not making fun of it, though. That was the interesting thing. Bobcat Goldthwait originally was going to do like a Christopher Guest style kind of comedy and then just kind of go up to a Bigfoot convention and shoot like a movie. On low-key movie. Just have his friends, hire them as performers, and they would kind of just go in and act their characters. But he decided not to do that. He was like, oh, I went to one, and these people don't mean any harm. I don't want to like make fun of them. It would be kind of mean-spirited to do something like that. So he kind of divines what ends up being Willow Creek. And like I said, it spends most of the movie, the vast majority of it, probably the first 50 minutes or so, just kind of exploring those communities. And it's not mean-spirited at all. Like, he's not an asshole about it. And I think that is because he himself, at least at the time he made this, was kind of a believer, or at least wanted it to be true. So there's a lot of fun stuff. It's like a very watchable movie. I really enjoyed it this time. When I first saw it, I definitely was dismissive of it. I think like this poster and some of the blurbs on the box, witty, skilled, and suspenseful. The most terrifying thing you'll ever see, the monster movie of the summer. Like that's kind of misrepresents the movie a little bit, honestly. It's a slow burn. It's trying to kind of get you to like these characters and invest in them and invest in what they're doing. They want you to have fun at first. Like everything's about the kind of the fun of exploration. And as I watched it this time, I thought it was actually pretty successful, especially for a movie that they shot in apparently like 5 days. 4 of them were actually spent filming. For the first day was just scouting locations. And so, in that respect, like, you got to give them props. They pulled it off. But there is like kind of the big moment towards the end of the movie. The thing that most people talk about, if you've ever heard somebody or if you ever read anything about Willow Creek, this is what they're going to talk about. There is an 18-minute, like, single shot, one take sequence of events where Kelly and Jim are in their tent. They're going out to a site where there was a sighting. They're going out into the woods. They have to camp to get there. They actually have to camp in the woods. And, it kind of starts where they're like in a tent and they're laughing and giggling and they're fooling around and they think they hear something. Oh, nothing there. So they go to bed. And then in the middle of the night, they wake up and they turn on the camera. It's a lot like something that would have happened in, like, say, Blair Witch Project, right? But even way more low key. Because it's just a single shot of them, like, looking not at the camera, but the camera's on them. It's got like the little camera flashlight on the camcorder, and they're just listening to sounds and getting increasingly freaked out. But it's got all these great, like, peaks and valleys. It's like really, really expertly done, because you go through that moment where you're freaked out at first, you're kind of like terrified, then it kind of subsides. It's like, okay, it's probably just an animal out there just making noises, and then something else will happen, and then you'll sense something is closer. Oh, then it goes away, but then it's walking away. Oh, thank God. And it just does this for 18 minutes, and it's so fucking well done. I was shocked how well it worked this time for me. I don't know, maybe I was just in the right headspace. I was in the right mood. I don't mind these kinds of movies, honestly. Especially with horror movies. I think granted, there's a lot of found footage movies. There's a lot of bad ones. But I think this one has a unique enough of an approach that it by and large works really well. And it does feel kind of authentic. And that low key nature of it definitely works in its favor. And it's got all this awesome stuff. They kind of seed this kind of, there's this kind of B plot that is never really represented, but it's just kind of in the background of, like, this missing people. There's this missing woman from the town. And and there's some kind of some crazy revelations. It was definitely more akin to, the Blair Witch Project. That's probably the closest thing I would say it feels like, except the characters are not, like, as innately hateable. I like the Blair Witch Project. I do respect it and I appreciate it, but those characters are awful. This one, they actually make an effort to make you like them. They're like regular people. And I think by and large, it's successful to getting you at least to not hate them. I mean, they're kind of like LA people. She's an actress. He's a director. But they're not total shitheads. A little snobby maybe, but not total shitheads. And then after that sequence that happens overnight, that 18-minute long thing, it turns into kind of the Blair Witch Project, where they just get lost out there. They don't know where they're going, and then they get attacked, and the movie ends. And because they're lost for that whole next day, and then it starts getting dark again, and they're still trying to get out of there, and then they get attacked. And it's very well done. But it definitely, it reminded me a lot of the Blair Witch Project, like I said, because a lot of the things that make the Blair Witch Project work, is people's kind of innate fear of getting lost in the woods, and how that is just how much anxiety that can cause a person just to be completely kind of unmoored from and feel directionless and feel what's the word I'm looking for? Vulnerable. You know, there's something about being lost. I've only been lost in the woods a couple times in my life. One time when I was a kid, I used to live in New Hampshire, and there was a mountain there, Mount Monadnock. And one time when I was a kid, I went on this trip with a bunch of people, and I was probably like 10, maybe even younger. And somehow, this guy and I, this older dude, he was like 17, I'm like 10. We got separated. Like I literally went down to look into something, get something out of my bag, like a fruit snack or something. And then I'm like, oh shit, everybody's gone. So I run up, I see this dude. So I just start following this dude, and then we're just fucking lost on the mountain. And it was, honestly, it was pretty terrifying. It was actually, I can viscerally remember like being afraid when I was a kid. And then other times it didn't end up being that big of a deal, but you do have that moment of panic. You're like, oh fuck, where am I? I can't get my bearings. I have no idea where I go. I don't know what direction to walk in. You know, I'm not Mr. Camper guy. I'm not like outdoorsman, so I'm not gonna like fucking pick a blade of grass and look for the sun and where the wind's going. Like I just or whatever. Like that's just not in my skill set. I mean, nowadays I think I could probably logic my way through it, but when you're a kid, you don't fucking know. And it definitely preys on those kind of primal fears I think that people have. And if you can suspend your disbelief and just kind of go with it, I think you're going to have a good time. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody though. So if you're not like either into the found footage stuff, or if you're kind of overly cynical, I don't know if you're going to like this. It's definitely not for everybody. And it's a movie that I understand when people don't like these kinds of movies. They just are not for everybody. But for me, when I look at like a found footage movie, I'm like, does it present a credible reality? Do I kind of believe in the scenario? Is it too incredulous, or does it feel natural? And I think by and large, this feels really natural. And it's successful in that because of that. So there you go. That's my review of Willow Creek. Check it out or don't. So anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter. Dan's Twitter's on there now. If you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos or for something for Zoobox Goes to the Movies, throw it in the comments and we will put it on the list. We will definitely consider it. I own so many movies and have so many streaming services. Sometimes it's nice just to be like pointed in a direction. All right, everybody. You have the best one ever.